Welcome to the Emajin Golf Podcast Beyond the 19. I'm your host Raj Narayan, and today we chat to one of our Platinum members, Rich Coombes from Nexus Advisory. Rich shares some great insights for business owners on how to access capital to support their business growth, operations, and working capital management. Some great gems out there. Hope you enjoy. Rich, I've known you for about 2 years now. We played a lot of golf together, both at Emajin events as well as at New South Wales Golf Club. And, you've been a big part of our community, one of our Platinum members with Nexus. And look, it's fantastic to have you here on the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Raj. Yeah, it's amazing to be here.
Oh, fabulous. So look, Rich, I just thought, you've been involved in the community for a while now, but why don't we start at the very beginning? Tell us a bit more about your early days and your background and where you come from.
Yeah, so I grew up in Sydney on the leafy North Shore.
North Shore, like me.
That's right. wasn't too far.
Whereabouts in the North Shore?
So originally, I was born in Adelaide, and then at the age of 2, we moved back to Sydney. So lived in St Ives for a few years.
I live in Kalara, neighbours.
Not too far. And then
right.
sort of bounced around sort of Pymble, Wahroonga and Turramurra. And Turramurra was where I spent most of my sort of childhood, I guess. Just about a 400-metre walk from the 16th tee at Pymble Golf Club. So that
Awesome.
was a blessing and a curse.
Is that what made you get into golf?
Yeah, it probably was, being in that close proximity, and golf just ran through the veins of my family. We were such a big golfing family, particularly on my dad's side.
Yeah.
So he played at Pymble, my brother played at Pymble, my grandparents were golf obsessed. It was probably my grandparents that really got me into it. Even my great-grandmother, she played until her late 80s. They were both, my grandparents and my great-grandmother were based up in Coffs Harbour. So during high school, I used to get the train up to Coffs and spend a lot of my high school kind of holidays playing at Coffs Harbour Golf Club, and I was a junior member actually at Bonville as well. Did my year 10 work experience at Bonville Golf Club.
Oh, Bonville is fantastic. We're going to go there mid of next year in 2026. So that'll be awesome. What a beautiful golf course to play at and be part of. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a special place. So played there sort of from the age of about 15 to until work experience really. I was about 16, 17.
The Augusta of Australia.
That's right, yeah. So pretty famous part of the world. So I used to spend a lot of time, I pretty much learned golf up at Coffs Harbour. Paul Sheen was a member at Coffs. So during my school holidays, I'd caddy for Paul on like a Thursday comp at Coffs Harbour. I think it's a qualifier for the Masters. I was on the bag, and he was just playing exceptional golf, and he was just a great guy. So that, I think, having that influence and just the family
Paul's
influence.
one of our members as well.
Yeah, he's
Melbourne
and an original member of New South Wales too.
So that's right.
Yeah, great guy. So yeah, great memories playing golf up that way.
Oh, super. Oh, fantastic. And then obviously, starting off about golf, let's talk a little bit about your golf and then get into your business side of things. So obviously you played a lot of golf as a junior. Any golf for business purposes?
Yeah. So during, played a lot as a junior, and then I played sort of in my early days of investment banking, and then pretty much just stopped golf for about 12 years, and then got into it around about 2017. I got back into it. I took up other sports for a better part of my sort of 20s and early 30s, and then got back into it in 2017. And yeah, now I love it. Obviously love playing all the Emajin events when I can, play out in Sydney, out at New South every couple of weeks, try and get out there on a Sunday afternoon. So take clients out, take friends out, have a few games, play some skins or...
Yeah, I love playing skins. I love betting, period.
It makes it so interesting, and
much more fun.
More fun, and every shot counts versus just doing an individual stableford. I mean, that's a good benchmark, but if you've got that group dynamic and you can throw up a couple of balls, have a match, maybe play 6-6-6, or just play for a drink at the bar afterwards. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I like playing. I usually play bets for 9 and 9. Yeah. But I have played skins and all of them. That's awesome. So you talked a little bit about investment banking. So tell me a bit about your career. So you obviously worked in investment banking in your early days. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so after high school, during high school, I always had, a business mind. Used to have a little side hustle when I was sort of in my very young years.
Yeah.
Various side hustles, and I worked at Franklin's, at St Ives, and I go play golf. So I always had a bit of a work ethic. And when I left school, I studied commerce liberal studies at Sydney Uni. I got an internship at UBS in their trading department. That turned into a part-time role in the equity capital markets team whilst I completed my studies. I was also potentially doing finance honours, but I got a really good job at UBS in part of their grad program, so I took that. So yeah, that was the number one equity capital markets team in the country. High deal volume. Busy time. Learnt a lot. It was a pretty good, baptism of fire in corporate life, but also banking. So I spent better part of three years there in that equity capital markets team. 2007, I decided to leave, and I wanted to go traveling, and spent a year.
Because for all those years you'd worked, Rich, you needed to take some time off.
And
because I always remember investment banking is like long hours.
It was a pretty sort of intense couple of years, and I still a bit sort of young and free spirited at heart. So I took some time off and went traveling through Latin America. Did a big sort of road trip across Central America. Went traveling through South America. Came back, and decided I wanted to move into mergers acquisitions. I'd been in equity capital markets, so got an amazing job at Investec. They had sort of a 20-person corporate advisory team focused on M&A. Yeah, so I did that for a couple of years, which was fantastic. Still keep in touch with a lot of my old colleagues and bosses.
And Investec, was it in Australia?
Yeah, it was in Australia, yeah. So they had a pretty big team here. They had, a whole bunch of different divisions: property, energy, infrastructure, investment banking, or corporate advisory. So yeah, it was pretty special. We got a lot of deal flow from David Gonski. He was the chairman at the time. So yeah, we got to sort of bounce things off him, which was pretty
fantastic,
great. But also had an amazing team. There was a couple of golfers in that team as well.
What banking group was there no golfers in? None.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it was funny, for a while, sort of cycling became the new golf in banking.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of that, and I probably leaned into that more at UBS. But yeah, golf, it's just so universal. So yeah, spent a couple of years at Investec. Then, funnily enough, long story short, but I got a bit of a health scare, and I thought it was from working really hard. Turns out it was unrelated. So I sort of reevaluated what I was doing, and always had an itch to go down the entrepreneur sort of path. So yeah, left and gave myself 3 months to have a business plan to pursue, my own business, and yeah, within 3 months I sort of had that plan. It took a bit longer to get off the ground, but decided to go down that path, and that spent the next 12 years
in businesses.
In businesses,
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because people always think, when you're working long hours and everything, you say, oh, look, I'm going to have great work-life balance, great control. And then they go start a business, and then they work longer and harder.
More, 100%.
Longer and harder, working in there to get it. Because, anything like getting it off the ground is a big thing. The first year, first 18 months, 2 years, it's hard.
Exactly.
Everybody knows. Anybody who's at a business will vouch for that,
Yeah, there's no shortcuts. And I think fundamentally it's, the early years as well, you don't have a lot of funding. Everything's on the, the smell of an oily rag, and you every dollar you spend, you want it to go, somewhere. So, and often you haven't done it before as well. So you're trying to figure it out on the fly.
Exactly. It's like, I use this analogy as like flying a plane, and you're screwing the bolt as you're flying. You're taking off and you're tightening something.
100%.
Like you're full flight and you're still, the wings falling off or whatever.
Totally. And I think that's, but that's what's so exciting and luring about it as well.
I think it's the autonomy as well. And I think that once you build it, the upside is higher.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I read this great quote probably about 2 years ago, and it said success equals autonomy. And I think that is, for a lot of people, for me, that resonates, because being able to sort of be the creator of your own destiny, or just having that flexibility to do what you want to do. You end up working a lot more hours, but it's on your own watch, and the ROI is much higher as well.
Totally agree. So tell me about some of your businesses, Rich. What did you work in the 12 years?
Yeah, so I kicked off in beverages. So started a cider company called Batlow Cider, which was a joint venture with the oldest and largest apple cooperative. At the time, they were cooperative in Australia, Batlow Apples. So they had about 10% of the Australian apple crop. So did a joint venture with them, launched that, grew that to a sort of multi-million wholesale business within a couple of years, national distribution, exported into a number of markets. So it was a lot of fun. Lived and breathed sort of all things cider. And it was relatively new. Craft beverages back then in 2010.
Yeah, exactly. These days there's a lot more of,
Yeah, it was really, even in beer, there was only a handful of, I mean, there were a lot more breweries now, but back then there was only a handful of sort of craft beers. It was pretty small in the scheme of things. The market just exploded, but cider was even smaller, and the level of knowledge in the market how to manufacture a craft cider was really limited. So that took us some time. Did that and was sort of involved in that for quite some time. And then in 2012, I teamed up with the guys at Victoria Coffee and co-founded Will & Co Coffee, which was, positioned as a sort of a third wave coffee roasting business. So focused on the wholesale market. And that was a lot of fun because we saw a gap in the market to create a new coffee brand that sort of leaned into the culture around coffee drinking. And we worked with our cafe partners, wholesale customers, to bring their cafe space to life. We made coffee more about the specialty bean, which a lot of the other, second wave roasters, they've done a good job at, but they weren't, in our opinion, creating brands that sort of extended beyond, great coffee. So that's where we focused our energy. And then in 2015, I was supplying cider to some guys down in Canberra. We became good friends, and they said, look, we're going to put in a little pilot system out the back of one of our venues in Braddon. Would you like to be involved? And craft beer was something I was very, very passionate about. I've been growing the cider company for sort of 4 years, but saw an opportunity to build a great craft beer brand, really focused on the beautiful outdoors of the sort of Canberra region. So there was a nice connection to Batlow. We were also growing hops in Batlow. So when we launched, we were the idea was to sort of supply part of the ingredients from the orchards to the brewery. So that little idea morphed into something much bigger. We brought some other people in and essentially built a pretty big manufacturing site down in Fyshwick in what was the wetlands precinct, but it was being redeveloped. So that's now a great precinct full of other sort of beverage producers and a whole bunch of other great, facilities down there. So that was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
And then in 2019, I co-founded a tech business, which was sort of leveraging my experience in beverages and wholesale distribution to sort of streamline a very antiquated market. And we created a B2B marketplace that sort of streamlined ordering, invoicing and payments for beverage suppliers and hospitality customers. So it was all sort of, within that beverages / hospitality realm. And that's what I sort of lived and breathed for 12 years, the better part of.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So sounds like an amazing journey. And you've, obviously worked in that space, but many interesting different businesses. I didn't realize, obviously I recognize all of those businesses, but yeah, that's fantastic. So tell me a bit more. I mean, you've obviously been in this entrepreneurial journey, building and scaling businesses and then exiting businesses. What made you move into Nexus Advisory?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I guess in 2023, I sort of exited my last business and I was working out what to do next. I was tinkering with another startup, but I was also consulting to a fintech. And I've known Steve Mitchell, the founder of Nexus, for some time. We met, funnily enough, in a dog park. Our dogs are around the same age. It'd be 3 p.m. on a Tuesday and we'd probably both be working from home. And who's at a dog park at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, just taking the dog for a quick walk during a home work break. And we got chatting and we'd just always see each other around. And We train at the same sort of pool gym complex down at Bondi called Icebergs. And he was like, "Oh, what are you up to?" And I said, "I'm working on this startup and I'm doing a bit of consulting to a fintech." And he said, "Oh, which one?" And I told him and he said, "Oh, yeah, they're great. They're one of my lenders." Mm-hmm. And he said, essentially, look, they're great, but they're one option. There's, I work with 200 lenders. I said, "Oh, I'd love to learn more about that." So we sat down, he took me through Nexus. And to be honest, I knew what he did, but I think when I met him at the time, he was more focused on asset and equipment finance. But by this time, he'd sort of morphed into broader commercial finance. And we sat down and I learned more about what he did. And I didn't know people like him existed, to be honest. And yeah, it seemed like a nice, I guess, sort of nexus, I guess you could say, between what I'd done previously in investment banking, sort of, just living and breathing sort of finance, probably at the bigger end of town, or sort of probably more medium-sized businesses to very big businesses. And then entrepreneurship or high growth businesses. So we spend our time helping businesses get funding, largely debt, to help them do a range of things that could be to grow, to manage working capital. From time to time, it's if they're in distress and need capital to support that period. So he never really wanted to have employees. He loves being on the tools, and I'm much the same. I've had teams, but at this point in my life, having a great business partner and being on the tools and actually doing, getting in the weeds with clients is what I love doing. I guess as an individual contributor, you could call it. It's probably in the tech world. And we decided we'd give it a crack together, and it's been great. So it's almost 2 years, and it's been still learning a lot, which is great. Even after, I guess, a bit of a career in other forms, you can still be learning and growing and finding something that you're really passionate about as well. And for me, that's, I'm passionate about entrepreneurship, passionate about business, love dealing with people, love solving problems. So what we do sort of, it really ticks off a lot of those things on a personal level as well.
Yeah, and you both complement each other so well, because obviously Steve's been on the podcast in one of the earlier episodes, and you both bring a different kind of background and skill set.
100%.
So I'm sure it complements very well as well.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. You look at both of you and you think you probably won't get along, but you get along so well. That's awesome. So and look, you were talking a bit about obviously being in the large corporate space and finance. And then doing the entrepreneurial journey is a bit of a challenge in itself. And you did talk about, the finances and, which is a big amount, right? Because mostly people say like 80% of businesses fail in the first year and all these stats. And a lot of the times I think they just run out of money.
Yeah.
Because the idea might be great, but to get it to execution takes a lot of purse, because in the end of the day, who's going to fund all this? And I think that's where the entrepreneurs go wrong, because you end up putting in a lot of time and effort, and then you're probably not paid. There's no paycheck coming your way till you, get actual sales. So, as cash is king, like the finance is a big part of getting any business to success. So tell me a bit more about, how Nexus, works in that space in terms of, supporting businesses through whether it be a mix of debt or debt and equity or something like that.
Yeah, spot on. So I think in this market in particular, access to capital is challenging. So typically, there's three forms of capital. You've got, the earnings from the business, you can reinvest back into the business or sort of owners' funds. Then the other, I guess, broad bucket is equity. So equity is very tricky to raise it in this market, as most know. Anyone raising equities, it's not easy. For some companies, if there's a few unicorns out there, they're probably attracting capital, but equity can be tough. So
also it's really hard to get equity till you can show some success. It's a catch-22.
100%.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and the amount of...
Because you got to show something in the business for someone to give you money, but then to do that, you need money.
Exactly. It's so circular. The amount of conversations, when I was raising money for startups, my own startups, we want to see more traction, or you need the capital to prove out the traction. Yeah. So it is a bit chicken and egg. But then debt has its place as well. And I think debt used in the right way, which is where we focus, can really help accelerate, growth, it's non-dilutionary. There's a lot of different lenders out there now, a lot of different solutions. So depending on the use case and the requirement, it can be a pretty, really useful tool to help either grow or manage a tricky working capital cycle or a complex supply chain. And, in terms of cost of capital, often it is much cheaper than equity as well.
Yeah, because obviously every time you get I always think when you get equity, you get dilution.
100%.
And you're giving away a big chunk of value of your business to who was providing the equity.
Yeah, which can make sense because, sometimes owning a smaller chunk of a bigger pie makes sense. But for things like inventory and working capital, if it's not growth directly related to growth, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
When there's there's great debt solutions that can sort of fill that void.
And they complement quite well, having the
100%.
right mix. So obviously one of the things you do is the non-bank debt. So tell us a bit more about that and how do you access that and how or if I was a business owner, how do you end up accessing that?
Yeah, so we work with a pretty broad network of about 200 lenders. So we do work with some of the banks.
Banks as well,
the more SME-friendly banks. But then the non-bank market has just obviously exploded. A lot of more specialized lenders across, whether it's growth capital or working capital, invoice financing, trade supply chain financing. There's a lot of different options out there, specialized options. But then the other part of the market that's really exploded in Australia is the private credit market as well.
Yeah.
So in the US, I read some stat, it's about 80% of all corporate loans in the US are written by private credit funders. Okay. Whereas in Australia, it's sort of around 10%. So it's still quite small versus the US, but it's a growing part of the market because of the flexibility in cost structures, term structures, different products, different lenders as well. So yeah, there's a lot more options. And anyone that's tried to get funding from a bank, we always suggest to our clients, go speak to your bank because in terms of cost, often it's going to be a cheaper source of funds. But obviously there's a bit of a process. And look,
I worked in banks myself. Like I've got years of experience there. And we used to always jokingly say, basically you own the person. I own you, your car, your house, your business, and your firstborn child.
Yes.
So it's a bit like that. And also a lot of the times, if you had multiple partners and things like that in the business, you're giving a lot of personal security.
100%.
And so what happens is sometimes it's not in relation with some of the other people. So for example, if I'm giving personal security or personal guarantees, then you're wearing a lot of risk as a business owner.
That's right.
So something happens with your business, it doesn't work, then you just now got to declare bankruptcy because everything is tied into that business. So, and I know you guys have worked with some of our members, quite a number of Emajin members, and been able to kind of structure deals or access, funding without a lot of personal guarantees and so forth. So tell me a bit more about that and how you create that for small businesses, or especially if they're businesses with complex structures or need to access capital that which is quite complex in nature.
Yeah, I think it comes down to our lender network. We work with a lot of alternative capital providers. So depending on the use case and the parameters that our client would like to borrow within, that sort of stipulates who we speak to. So we've got such a broad panel, and Steve had an amazing panel before I joined him. I've brought a slightly different network myself as well. So we have pretty comprehensive coverage in terms of SME financing options. So usually we can find an option within that really fits well, and ideally multiple options. So we've got multiple options that our clients and members can kind of choose from. And then it just comes down to flexibility. So some lenders don't need personal guarantees. So if that's a showstopper, we can work exclusively with lenders that don't require personal guarantees. They might look at other forms of security or other forms of, support from the business. But we can pretty much structure anything depending on the requirements as well.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing to know. And is there specific size of businesses that work better? Or like, do you have to be a certain size of business to attract debt funding, for example?
Good question. I mean, we have got pre-revenue companies debt funding.
Oh, wow.
And there might be a heads of agreement from a big retailer, but then they've got to then go produce all the goods.
Yeah.
So there are some great commercial lenders out there that'll take a view on that. That's a great opportunity. That's a great retailer. If that's written in essentially in a commercial agreement, they can lend against that, which is great. Typically, it'll be post-revenue, but there are times when pre-revenue makes sense. And then, in terms of sweet spot for us, we work with startups. We love startups. We work with a lot of growing companies. Probably in that sort of 2 to 10 mil rev range is where most of our sort of clients sit. But we have clients, doing 100 mil revenue. We have clients that are pre-revenue. So we're pretty broad. We're sector agnostic, which keeps it pretty interesting as well. So across all different sectors, there's not a sector that we don't really cover. We're pretty agnostic when it comes to who we work with. And it's interesting because you learn about all these amazing businesses in spaces that you just didn't know existed as well.
Exactly. And look, obviously, Emajin Golf is full of business owners and executives, and the entire community is pretty much, in the business for themselves. And if you are a business owner and you're looking at options of how you could support your business or access cash, what are some of the things you got to look at, or what are some of the things that, just in terms of learning, what are something that business owners can look at for this?
Yeah, so I think the starting point for any business looking at sort of different capital options is to engage their existing advisors. So if they're working with their accountant, or they've got an in-house CFO or a fractional CFO to start there and look at, what are the funding needs, what are the pressure points or the pinch points within the business, depending on the nature of the business, what are the opportunities, what would it take to, I guess, accelerate some of those opportunities and bring them to fruition, and then engaging whether it's Nexus or someone else, but commercial finance advisory firms or brokers can be quite helpful because they do have the network, and I guess when we speak to lenders, we can workshop things, we can get some high level kind of points of feedback that we can share with the client as well, because it's a minefield. There's so many different options. There's hundreds of lenders, thousands of products. So you look at all those different sort of lender product combinations. It is a minefield. It's tricky to navigate, and fundamentally, business owners don't have time to navigate that. And probably something that is important is that every inquiry that's made to a lender, every time a business owner submits an inquiry, their credit score can be impacted as well. So that's something people don't realize, isn't it? Yeah. Like that is like a really important consideration, because that affects pricing ultimately. And some lenders, if they see that a business has actually gone to one lender, a certain type of lender, and applied to them, then that'll just red flag them completely from their appraisal of the scenario. So, and
why is that, Rich? Is it because they assume that they've applied to someone and they didn't get the funding, they've come here?
Possibly.
Is that the reason?
That's spot on. So it just shows that they have applied for funding and have a need, and it just impacts their credit rating. The more inquiries, every time there's an inquiry, it hits the file. So that can be self-fulfilling.
So every time there's an inquiry, what do? They do a credit check or something like that?
If they do a credit check, if it's an inquiry, a $0 inquiry will still be a check. But the more of these that happen, the worse a credit score will be, and ultimately the cost of funds will go up. So the beautiful thing about working with a broker is that we can have high level discussions. We can
conversations without applying,
without hitting the file. We can do some high level workshops and submit financials and a whole bunch of other data, our credit paper as well, and then we can have discussion versus it just hitting the credit file. So that's important. I mean, that's one consideration, and that a lot of people don't realize that. So that's important, and that's something that I've learned, because I was probably guilty of that in my previous businesses, sort of needing funding and putting it out there directly to lenders and trying to figure out who's going to give me cash. But it can be a self-fulfilling kind of process. So
Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting there. And in this kind of environment, look, obviously when there's a bit of um, in this economic environment that we are in today, what are some of the most typical things that people are approaching for credit, or what are some of the things that they can finance? Because sometimes as business owners, you don't realize you have all these options out there. You sometimes think, oh my God, I got to pay the ATO, or I got to pay whatever it might be. Yeah, you're just always thinking that you got to cover it from your own cash flows or from your own investment.
Yeah, spot on. So I think obviously we do a lot in the growth space. So that's looking at sort of growth capital, enter new markets, bring on more staff to accelerate sort of growth opportunities, working capital to if you're B2B and you've got a pretty hefty sort of debtor ledger, and that's tying up a lot of working capital. We can help release that through various mechanisms, whether that's invoice financing or lines of credit, etc., or it might be some sort of structured piece. For businesses that have big contracts and the cash flows are lumpy, again, help putting in some different structures to support working capital in that scenario. And then obviously anything on the balance sheet, so assets, commercial property, we do a lot in as well. And even unlocking some assets, unlocking value within assets, it can be a strategy.
Like you mean like refinancing some of the...
Refinancing or a cap raise against an existing vehicle or asset that can be raised against. That's another form of sort of unlocking capital. Which is tied up on balance sheet. So the options are quite broad, just depending on what
the person wants to do.
Exactly what the balance sheet looks like, what their situation is.
Oh, fantastic! And look, that's a lot of different options that business owners can access. That's great. And just tell me a bit more as well. Like talked a lot about the financing side of things and setting it up. What does this typically take? I mean, how long does it take? Like if say for example, if it was Emajin Golf, like I wanted some funding, what is it, how long does it actually typically take to access this funding on the lending options?
Yeah, so in the non-bank space, it's typically within sort of 48, 72 hours we get some feedback, and so sometimes that can be funded within sort of 2-3 days.
Wow.
We've had funding done in 24 hours for some clients.
Wow.
So it depends on often the quality of information and that's available and availability of information. But I guess for the bigger ticket transactions where there's a little bit more involvement, might be a private credit fund deal or a more sort of complex asset deal that can take between sort of 3 and 6 weeks, typically, sometimes longer, to get an outcome. Still, like banks are typically probably on average 6 months. So much quicker than going down that path. So it can be turned around pretty quick. And the beautiful thing is we have good relationships with lenders too. So if something is a little bit urgent, we can help sort of push it through and get some eyeballs on it with priority versus just sitting in the back of a queue as well. So that's something that often happens. Like funding can be pretty pressing, and we love to move on our clients' timelines. So when we engage with our clients, we ask them, how quickly do you need this? Because we like to run on their cadence as well. If they need it by a certain date, we move heaven and earth to try and make that happen.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, because people, when you're a business owner, you think about your strategy and your vision and where you're headed. And your financing strategy is a big part of the strategy as well.
100%.
And sometimes people forget that that's an option available. People look at strategy from a business operational perspective, but how you structure your business from a capital perspective and the financing strategy could really complement your business strategy.
100%. And we often see that the finance, maybe it's not in play, or it hasn't been considered, or they've expected that it's going to come from a certain source, and that it's sometimes good to have a contingency as well. Particularly in these times where we're out in sort of more uncertain times than maybe 5 years ago. So there's definitely some prudent measures you can put in place around that.
Yeah, Fantastic. Oh, look, that's been great, and a lot of real gems of insight over there for business owners, and I've taken away a lot myself. That's awesome. And look, this is a golf podcast. It's called Beyond the 19th, and all about building relationships beyond the clubhouse or beyond the 19th hole. And especially at Emajin events, I always say, the fortune is in the follow-up. So when you come into an event, keep following up or connecting with people. So let's talk a little bit about the golf side of things as well, Rich. What do you play off at the moment?
I think my GA is in the fives somewhere.
There you go.
High fives, yeah.
So that's pretty awesome, no? Single-digit handicapper. So that's pretty great. So tell me a little bit as well about your golfing journey. And when you look back at golf, I kind of ask these questions to all of my podcast guests. If there are any bucket list golf courses or anything that you wanted to visit, what would they be? Is there anything that you want to go to in your bucket list?
Yeah, New Zealand, Tahiti.
Yeah.
Definitely the Masters, US Masters, Augusta. I like to play more US courses. I've played a few, played Torrey, played Pebble, done that sort of coast. I love to play Monterey Country Club, which is next to Pebble, but very private. That looks spectacular. Played a little bit in the UK, but would like to play all through. I haven't played it all in Ireland. So Ireland,
the beautiful
Scotland, obviously St Andrews. So there's just so much golf to play. I've been fortunate. I've sort of done a few golf trips. Played in Vietnam recently. Blown away. Quality of courses up there. So I think there's just more nuggets of gold globally. Whenever there's a golf course, no matter how unassuming it is, I try and play it if I'm traveling. I was in New Zealand recently at a hot air beach on the northeast coast. And amazing golf course, just spectacular. So there's just so many great golf courses. Obviously down in Tassie, 7 Mile, keen to get down there.
Yeah, absolutely. So interestingly, we're looking to run a tour early in the year, the 7 Mile beach, and then also playing Barnbougle, Lost Farm, and
Love
King
it.
Island. So a little 5-day trip, playing 5 courses on 5 days. So that should be pretty cool. And also playing Tahiti and TRI.
Oh, wow.
Next year.
Oh,
so
wow.
This is in the schedule for next year. So it's interesting you mentioned it.
Yeah, fantastic.
And I've been even toying about this idea, and I need to get some sound bites from our members for that. But as you know, we have the trip to Bonneville, and the winner gets an opportunity to go to the President's Cup as part of the Genesis Cup. And I was thinking of actually running a small group to go watch the President's Cup at the same time. And then probably won't get an opportunity to play Medina, but play 2 or 3 of the top courses around Medina, and maybe even Medina the following week or something like that. So that's kind of
pretty special.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, because everybody's on this race to go to the President's Cup.
Yeah.
One person's going to win, and all the others are going to be, wanting to go. So we're going to offer it as a tour, saying if you are interested, you could go and watch it.
Yeah, amazing. Because the President's Cup out here, I think it was 2019.
Yeah.
Royal Melbourne.
Was epic.
Just incredible. I went down for it and played a whole bunch of golf on the back of it. So pretty amazing, especially after seeing the Ryder Cup. Hopefully we can do something similar at the internationals. Yeah,
absolutely. And it'll be great as well, especially for the Australians to go to the President's Cup, because we see our own golfers there. We see all the Aussies and people like that. So anyway, these are on the cards for next year.
Yeah, great.
So we'll do that. And I'm going to ask you kind of one last question before we wrap up. And tell me a bit more. I mean, if you could have anybody in your dream 4-ball, who would that be?
Just 4.
You can only have to choose 4. You've got to be one of them, so only 3 really.
3. Had to be Tiger.
Yeah.
Definitely. Probably Jack.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be nice.
And Kelly Slater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
he's
like
a
how you
golfer.
said. Yeah.
I heard this story. I don't know how true it is, but he had a surf comp near Pebble Beach in the morning, and then he played the Pro-Am in the afternoon. And he won the surf comp, and he had, I think, an albatross.
Oh, wow.
At Pebble. It was something wild of that nature. So just playing with someone of that talent
That'd be awesome.
in that 4 would be pretty special.
Oh, that would be amazing 4-ball. Fantastic. Good choice. So look, Rich, it's been fabulous chatting with you. Great learning about, financing, about business, about golf. It's been great to chat to you. Any last words or anything you want to say before we wrap up this podcast? Over to you.
Just thanks so much for having me. Really enjoyed been part of the Emajin community. It's a fantastic group of people, really interesting people. I've had the pleasure of meeting so many members, and I think you've done an amazing job with it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. And see you on the course.
Absolutely. Thanks, Raj.